So welcome to this week's spiritual journey. My name's Lindsay Banks, psychic medium and intuitive. And this week joining me, I have Verite Hunter. Welcome, Verite.
Hi.
So Verite is a training and developing coach and has a fabulous Facebook page called Healing Heartlines, which is to empower and inspire others. So Verite, do you want to tell us where your spiritual journey started for you?
So basically I have always kind of known that I was a little bit of a different kind of child. When other kids were kind of playing, doing their thing, I was the one that was like, I'll just sit here with these rocks and this grass, it's really happy. So I think that now I look back at it, I've always kind of been outside of the box. But I'd say that I started kind of on the path probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And I suppose that my kind of journey was fast tracked, from kind of psychedelics and the whole party lifestyle, and then kind of integrated more into meditation and mindfulness practices, and just kind of developed from there, really. But my big sort of like awakening, I suppose, the big like rock everything up, sort of started October last year. And from there it's been a complete rebuild of who I am as a person and how I want to develop. So yeah.
So what was there something in particular that triggered your awakening? Because often when someone has a spiritual awakening, it might be like a divorce, or someone's like there's a death in the family or of a close loved one. So was there a particular trigger that started your awakening?
Yeah, so basically I had 3 life events at that time, one of them being a death of a very, very close friend. You might have known, I don't know if you knew her.
No, I've heard of her, but no, I didn't know.
Yeah. So she was someone who was very, very close to me, and I think it just completely shattered my world, because she, was the person that would always look after other people and was always there for them. And for me, she was like a mother figure. She was someone that I would go and get cuddles with, and we'd go to charity shops like most weekends, and we danced together for years. So it was just a massive sort of shock to the system, and I was already doing a lot of work then as well, and it was just literally like something had just blasted open in me. And yeah, it was a really like difficult time to not sort of glamorize it. I think a lot of people think of awakenings as like, oh, it's just this amazing like thing, and it's all like learn a lot about yourself. But no, it is hard and it is painful. And it's very agonizing. So that was the main sort of like, there was 3 life events, but I think that one, and I never really dealt with death, and especially like a suicide death to that sort of extent, where it was very sudden and it was someone who was very, very close to me. I never really experienced death in that way, so it also gave me an opportunity to turn around and look at death as a whole thing, which especially if you're kind of in this love and light sort of environment, it's not where somebody goes, but I found so much power in that, and so much love and acceptance of not being scared of death in a way. So yeah.
So did you feel like, because you mentioned on your Facebook page, you mentioned going through your own dark night of the soul, so was that around that time?
Yeah, so it was sort of from October. So what happened then is I basically had a nervous breakdown. I had completely lost sort of track of time, just became completely broken open, and I don't actually have any memory of like 48 hours.
Wow.
And then I just remember like kind of being in hospital, but I remember and this is where it's very, a lot of people experience this, and I talk about this in my page. There's a line in there that says, I was being teased by the frequencies that no other people could hear. And this is always a massive one, and people experience it on a collective level, especially when there's big kind of global events going on, or a big kind of collective consciousness shift. And that's the ringing in the ears, or what would be known as tinnitus. But if you've never sort of experienced it before, and it's normally within like the left ear, I believe, as well, and I normally get it, left ear just a few times, and I get it extremely when I'm doing breath work or meditation, and different things like that. But it started to come on, and then it was just boom, it just really hit me. And it can be also exacerbated by stress, but I think that when you're doing an awful lot of work on yourself, you're shifting those internal vibrations, you're you know, bringing yourself up to a higher level, and you are more aware and in tune into your senses. And this is another thing that I've noticed so much since then, is I'm so more in tune with my senses. Like I can smell or things or hear things, or you know, and I think there's a lot of like kind of sensory deprivation stuff around it where I can literally tune in. And I think this was years and years of meditation. And I remember the first time I did it was actually in a Buddhist center, and I was on a retreat, and they said, think about the sounds in the room and what you can hear in the room, and then try and focus on the sound outside of the room. And it was literally like a movie scene. So there was a car that I nobody else could have probably heard, and it was the tiniest, faintest sound, but I really zoned in on it. By this time I'd been meditating for almost over an hour, because it was a really long Vinastra meditation. And yeah, I could zone in on the car, and then all of a sudden I could hear it getting louder, and it went zoom, and I was like, I just did that with my own mind. I just made that sound loud because I picked up on it and
brought it in towards you.
Yeah. So there was just so many different parts of that, and you know, there's a lot around kind of sound frequency and sound healing, and I would say for anyone who's experiencing this, the only thing that generally helps me is frequency therapy. Because yeah, I can get days where it's just I'm too sensory overloaded, and I literally just need to lie down in, you know, a meditative state, get myself into my breathing. I do normally a 7-4-8 breath to kind of get myself into that. And then I'll normally listen to 528, because 528 is a safe frequency. Anything above that, you're starting to go into the kind of like very dodgy kind of mental health sort of states. So 528 is a really, really good frequency to listen to, because it's kind of like it brings you back to a baseline level. So that's what I normally do. I'll lie down until I kind of come down to a safe spot, and that helps me then navigate, I suppose, back into this world. Because yeah, I think that you can become so aware of other stuff that you can sometimes get lost in it. And another thing that I do is I leave my, like, you know, try to get out. And obviously we're in lockdown at the moment, but I try to get out into nature as much as I can. That's just
very grounding, isn't it?
Definitely. And any kind of grounding techniques as well. So I think after I came out of hospital and everything after that, people, even my friends, everyone got used to me doing all sorts of weird things just to ground myself, like walking around with no shoes on, for one.
That's really helpful though, isn't it?
Yeah. And I remember, like, my friend came and picked me up because I'd had a panic attack somewhere, and like this woman was like, she's not wearing any shoes. She's like, yeah, no, it's fine.
So just going back to when you went into the hospital, so you had a nervous breakdown, you were in hospital. What were you telling the doctors and the medical team about any of the spiritual stuff that had been occurring?
Yeah, it was really interesting. So when I entered into hospital, I don't really remember. There was kind of like flashes. I just remember like certain peaks. I got somehow to my friends in Leeds, and then I was like basically in a hospital bed, and I woke up and they were like, we're doing a scan on your brain. And I was like, right, okay. But they were very, because I heard this ringing in my ears, and they had no idea of why I was hearing this ringing in my ears. And they were like, you know, they thought that basically I was hearing voices and I was like psychotic and stuff like that. And I was like, no, like I kind of didn't want to explain too much, because I was like, I'm in a very dangerous position here, as in like I could actually be looked up.
Yeah.
And I, you know, then we waited like 4 hours for the brain scan to come back. So I was like, right, okay, I'll do this brain scan. And they said at first, they were like, there's some issues with it, so we're having another doctor look at it. So I was like, okay, right, fine. So then they came back and like they were like, we have found some issues. And I went straight away, prefrontal cortex, because I was like thinking straight away, I know what it is. It's a hyper, you know, my amygdala's like not working. I'm in a fight or flight response. I'm, you know, basically I knew kind of what was going on. And they went, no. And then they said, so we found an abnormality with your pineal gland, but it's nothing to worry about. Okay. So anybody that doesn't know, the pineal gland is what, you know, is our source, I suppose, to the higher dimensions. And yeah, it's where, you know, all of the DMT and stuff is created, which is in every living form of being, within plants, human beings, animals. It's the kind of connection to Mother Gaia. So an abnormality, and I never really looked into this because they said it's nothing to worry about at the moment, and it's almost like they said it and it was like, when they said it, it was like it was a normal thing, like, and it really like kind of, and I kind of looked at my friends being like, what does that mean, but then I had a thought about it, and I was like, oh no, okay, my pineal gland is probably a lot larger than everybody else's because it's been calcified. I've done an awful lot of work on it, and I have had a few DMT experiences myself as well, so it will be larger than most people's. So yeah, that was quite interesting, and like knowing that now, I think I've tried to keep my pineal gland at a baseline level where I am, you know, trying to cut out the fluoride from you know, the water, and you know, my toothpaste, and keeping my meditations and try and activate that as much as I can, but keep it at a level where it doesn't send me to up air in the sky sort of thing.
So what do you think, like, so if anyone else is watching this and either they've had a nervous breakdown or they're not feeling in a great space, how did you find your way out of it? Do you know what I mean? Because when you're in that space, I can imagine like just the feelings, the heavy feelings and everything you must have experienced. So how did you start to sort of become you again?
Your world breaks apart, and I think that I probably wouldn't, I think I'm quite right in saying that you don't become you again. And that's going to probably sound like quite a harsh thing to say, because that's all you want to do is you just want to go back to normal, but you can't. You cannot plug back into society once you've kind of unhitched yourself from the matrix, and everything that you found so much meaning in and so much stability in will just not matter anymore. It's almost like you're living above another planet. You're kind of looking around at people being like, why, what are these people doing? Oh, they're going to work. Why? Oh, because somebody pays the bills to do it. Like, it's just, it doesn't make sense. Like, it really doesn't. And you kind of you tap into a high level of consciousness, and I think this is where a sense of community and a community build is so important. So through my own practices of like 5 rhythms dancing, you know, the Rise and Dawn, like all these people that I've met across my own journey have become kind of my new baseline, and you can't go back to like mundane conversations or sitting in front of a box watching TV, or, you know, just everything in your life becomes open, and you start to care about your body and your mind so much more because you realize that you're here for a reason. And if you are going through this, like, you are here for a reason. And, you know, that's not to say that I don't still get like bad days now, because I do, but I have so many more coping mechanisms to be able to deal with it. And you're so much more aware of other people's things. Like, you see them straight away and you just go, oh, that's because of that, and that's because of, you know, that, and that all comes with work. But yeah, I think the main sense is community and connection. They are the super most important ones, because when you feel like that, all you want to do is isolate yourself, and you don't want to be around anyone, and you just want to stay in bed, and you just want to sleep, and you just want to, you know, eat comfort food and all of these other things. And it's so hard to get up and do the opposite of what you feel like doing. But I in my writing, I put, you know, even on the days where I feel like I couldn't communicate, I was silently celebrating someone just sitting next to me, because that's so massive. Just having someone sit next to you, and even though they didn't understand what was going on, the people that were in my life was just so beautifully, amazingly supporting me through it, because, you know, I was able to sit there, and I remember the doctors wanting to put me on all sorts of different medication when I first went there. And I said, okay, right, but I don't believe that this one is a good one for serotonin uptake and everything. And they were just completely blown away by what I was saying. They were like, how can she have this but then have so much intellect about herself? Like, what's going on with her? So yeah, it was kind of a very unique experience to be so aware yet so incapable of understanding what was going on mentally within my body. So that was just a journey, and you know, having endless conversations with those people. Like, it really builds you back up, that sense of community.
Yeah.
And reaching out to somebody, you know, which may understand what you're going through.
Mm.
Because we
Just,
all feel it collectively as well.
yeah.
We're all here for that reason, you know.
Yeah.
So,
No, I was just going to say, like, when I went through my dark night of the soul, like, like you, I had some coping mechanisms that I'd read about and I'd learned about in theory, but I'd never read any books about a dark night of the soul. I didn't even know what that was until, like, probably, I think it was 3 months after I came out of it. And I was talking to someone and said, you do realize that's a dark night of the soul? I was like, oh my God, I've never even heard of that, you know, and started doing the research then. And going through that awakening, at the time, I was very much like isolated anyway as well. So I was just in a situation where I was isolated, and I didn't have anyone that I could speak to about this awakening. I didn't have anyone that I could tell that I was having angels visiting me. Do you know what I mean? And my spirit guides were coming through in my dreams, because I thought people are just going to think that I'm crazy. But that's partly, and the community thing, you know, that's why I set up the Facebook group, Consciousness Arising, because I wanted people to not feel like they're alone on this journey. Because, like you said earlier, about it's not all love and light, you know, sometimes people think that being on the spiritual journey is, but we all have days where it's like you feel sad or upset. You still sort of feel all these different emotions, don't you?
yeah, I think you really go through it, and you learn to, a lot of that's to do with the moon for me. Like the planet, you know, if there's a collective event going on, I really tap into kind of my intuition a lot more now. I do an awful lot of dream work as well. When I was going through my dark night of the soul, I wasn't dreaming. I was having sleep paralysis like 3-4 times a week, and it like, for anyone who's not experienced it, it is the scariest thing. And what irritated me so much is I was going to the doctors, and there was a point where I completely lost like my ability to speak. So I wasn't able to speak. I wasn't able to really, I had to relearn how to, it was like I'd basically gone into, you know, had a brain injury. That's what it was. When you have a nervous breakdown, everything just breaks and you have to rebuild yourself up again. So yeah, I remember my friend saying, oh, she said that she sees shadow people. And I was like, oh, I don't see shadow people. I'm having sleep paralysis. And the doctor had never even heard what sleep paralysis was.
Oh, really?
And he had to go away and Google it. And I went back to the doctor again next week, and he was like, really interesting. That, yeah. And I was like, like, doctor, you should know that. Do you know what I mean? Because that's so scary. Because if I had said, oh, she's seeing shadow people, and they would have put me on a medication that would have, you know, could have done a lot more damage than good. But I practiced a lot in lucid dreaming when I was a kid. I used to like journal my dreams, and I used to, you know, travel around a lot, and that kind of barrier between reality and our dimension, you know, the third, fourth and fifth dimension, just completely breaks open during that time. So it's really important to try and find solace and grounding, and I generally found mine a lot within nature and within kind of sensory stuff, breath work and somatic experiencing. Like, so huge.
What's somatic experiencing, just if anyone hasn't heard of it? Can you just explain?
Yeah, so somatic experiencing is basically the experiencing you feel within your body, and it can be done through a variety of different methods. So 5 rhythms is one. You'll get to a kind of a heightened state where you'll start to feel tingly and see endorphins releasing within your body. But breath work is another one as well. I've been practicing the Wim Hof method recently.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
And for anyone who wants to try it, he does have a free app, and you can try the free app in like cold showers as well. He has little challenges on there, and that's all just like getting to feel back into your body. Acupressure and acupuncture is really good for releasing stuff, because all of this sort of like trauma and all the stuff that we've held and everything from that kind of, you know, it's almost like you birthed a new life, all of that old life, all of those memories are held within the muscles, and most of the time they're not given a chance to release. So there's so many different like it was really through the body work that I found, you know, and I had therapy. I had schema therapy, which was paid for by my work, which was really high end. You know, I wasn't like the baseline like CBT sheets. I was like learning like NLP, like anchoring techniques, like because that was like the level that I was at. So you know, I had a lot of therapy, but the thing that I found like the most helpful was all of the body work, because it was almost like I couldn't express through words, express through the body, and become more connected and rooted within the earth. So that was huge.
So I was just saying to you earlier on, so I met you, maybe it must have been last October time then, when I first met you, and seeing the difference in you from then to now, it's massive. It's like you are like a new woman, you know, compared to where you were at. So that's what, like 6 months transfer time?
Yeah, so it's been a really kind of long journey since then, and I have done, it's kind of like I've been on my own kind of healing path with it. So you know, I had kind of the mental breakdown. I was already doing a lot of like the Kundalini yoga stuff at the Rising Dawn, so that was a massive and I had so many emotional shifts there as well, understanding my triggers. I did a silence there as well, so that was like really intense. And yeah, and then I got back, I was doing like yoga every day, and different breathwork series and different meditations, going out into nature. I really got to know plants, and foraging became like one of the things, because I live in such a beautiful place in Todmorden, and there's just so many places that I could walk and go to. So it was almost like I kind of found solace in that. And also microdosing mushrooms, which had a huge kind of benefit for me. And it was that kind of really opened up a lot of blocked memories. Like I was able to, with that and the therapy, and I remember telling my therapist, I was like, oh, I'm microdosing mushrooms at the moment, and she was like, okay. But you know, I decided to do my own thing, so I did that with the reishi and chaga mushrooms. So they are kind of power mushrooms, and they really help kind of memory and cognition, which I'd completely lost a lot of. Like when you go through a nervous breakdown, you're not able to remember literally what you did 2 minutes ago. Like I would put the toast in and wander around the kitchen with a towel, being like, I was supposed to take a shower like an hour ago and I don't know what I'm doing, like, because you're just literally wandering around like completely lost. So I'd write things down, because I'd lose my memory, I'd dissociate. There was just so much stuff going on, and there was all like emotional triggers. So it was learning those triggers, journaling them, and the crying and the pain. It's agonizing to feel it. And I would howl on my yoga mat like for sometimes 2 hours, big emotional releases. And I think the combination of the mushrooms and therapy and stuff took me all the way back, and I went through kind of the attachment styles of the lifetime all the way back, deep rooted into my childhood. And there was this memory, and I was in the cot, and this is how deep the memory was ingrained. And I knew it was a memory, because I was like, what? I didn't even know you could remember that far back, because I don't have a lot of memory of a lot of my life, because it's, you know, it's just not there. But this one was very particular, where I was kind of in the cot and my parents were arguing over the top of my crib, and I was like, and it was really horrible, and I was like crying, and I was wanting to be held, and I was wanting to be picked up. And my mum suffered from postnatal depression, and she doesn't really talk about it that much, because I think she always holds a lot of sense of guilt there, and I think a lot of women do when they go through that. So there wasn't really that kind of close bond or connection that I had with her. And that's huge, like, you know, not having that and then carrying that for the rest of your life. Like you don't even realize how, even before, even in the womb, the food that your mum's eating then, how that can have an effect on your mental state. It goes all the way back. So it's like when you also heal yourself, you heal all of your ancestral lines. So that's really what I felt like I was doing, and I was going back and connecting with all those ancestral lines and guides. I think for me, like the guides come a lot within animals, so I get a lot of animal dreams, and I always, you know, Google my dreams and have a look and do little dreams.
I do that as well.
It's always for me, animals and plants. I always learn a lot from plants. I feel like the plants almost talk to me. So I started meditating last year outside, and I do a simple meditation where I sit with the plant, and I kind of mentally mantra chant to myself, like, I breathe you and you breathe me, and it makes me feel so much more connected in with plants. plants. And when you're in that kind of mindful state, I sort of like walk along and then I'll notice a plant and I'll be like, oh, hello, hi, what do you want to tell me? Like, and I have a look at it and what its properties are, and I see what I can do with it. So yeah, just working with nature in that essence.
I think that's a massive thing. And I think just going back as well to the ancestral healing, I think it's like our generation, if you like, the one, like people who are starting the healing work are doing it for our mums and our grandparents and our great grandparents and everyone else who's come before us. And I think that's partly as well why our spiritual awakening, our spiritual journey is, it's not pretty, and it's not, you know, there is a lot of tears and stuff that we release, but it's because we're not just healing ourselves, like you said, you know, we're healing our parents and grandparents and all of those who've come before us who didn't necessarily have the tools that they needed at their disposal to be able to do that work for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember my therapist saying to me once, she was like, you know, all these people that are in therapy, they're not in therapy for themselves, they're in therapy for everybody else that didn't go to therapy.
Exactly, yeah.
and it's so true. It's so true, you know.
Yeah. And it has like, it has a ripple effect as well, doesn't it? I don't know if you found this, but the more work you do on yourself, it's like it sort of filters out, doesn't it, to like to friends, to neighbors, to anyone that you come into contact with, because you feel more connected. You're more likely, well, I've always spoken to strangers anyway, but you know, I speak to anyone and like smile and I'm like, oh hi, how are you? You having a good day? And just even simple things like that, they're like, oh, someone spoke to me, so then they're more likely to carry that on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I found that as well, like I might even show my dad this interview. Same with my parents, like reconnecting with my parents again, my mum and my dad, like going back and being like, you know, and having that not just like forgiveness and wholeheartedness, but realizing that their lives really weren't easy.
Yeah.
And they did, you know, as much as they could. And you know, they you know, they were living in a different time, and there is a block of addiction on my mum's side, and my mum has been sober for many years now, and she found her own kind of spirituality through AA. But there was a block of alcohol addiction running through my nan, through my mum, and you know, and it's really hard to be that person to stand and be like, stops with me, no, not having it, like, you know, stops with me, and I'm going to clear all of this kind of karma behind me so I can kind of go forward in the future. And it feels quite difficult as well for, I think, a lot of people when they go through this kind of like awakening, because the only people that you think that you'd be able to turn to is your family, and not always necessarily the best people.
No.
And I remember somebody spoke to me about this the other week, and they said, you know, I feel like this and I feel like this, and I'm like, because you're still seeking approval in that place, and it's really hard to tell you, dude, but you're not going to find it. Like, you've not found it up until now, you're not going to, you know, just because you change doesn't always necessarily mean that the world around you changes.
No.
And I think that's what some people forget. They're like, oh, I feel so much better now, I'll go back and I'll be fine. Nah. Like,
can you? It's like trying to then fit like a square peg in a round hole, isn't it? Because you can never go backwards, can you? You can't go back to what was before, but it's around adapting, isn't it? And saying, right, well, this is who I am now.
And I think what you can do as well is you can build that family around you. Like, I have people that have played my father figures in my life. A lot of them have been my ex-boyfriends who are now realised that I don't need to look for my dad anymore in my relationships. Just honestly out there. But yeah, like a lot of them now play those sort of roles in my life, and you know, I've had other people play kind of mum kind of roles in my life, and all these people around me collectively are like my family. People that I make an effort to check in with. And I think it's also really difficult because your tribe changes, and it changes very drastically, it changes very quickly, and it's always really important to have somebody who's higher, like I suppose, or achieving more above you, and somebody who can help as well who might be a few steps behind, because there's always going to be a few people a few steps behind what you were, or a few people a few steps forward. And I think it's always important to have that balance and not always be stuck, and your relationships will change. Like it's difficult when that happens. You're like, oh, this person's been my friend for so many years, and it's like, but now you see all of their stuff, like you see it all, and you know, it's like, it's really hard to go back there and be like, oh, you could just do this thing, you could be so, but you can't change that. You've got to, like, you know, let people find it in their own time. And sometimes those kind of friendships that you've had for years start to fizzle away. And that's hard, because it's almost like saying goodbye to that part of yourself and also them. But you build stronger new relationships. Like the relationships that I have now and the people that I have now, it's like instant connection. It's like you meet someone and you're not afraid to speak about who you are and what you do, and it's like boom, like we connect like that. And then once we do, the everything in your life becomes richer. My conversations are richer, the food I eat is richer, the exercise I do is richer. It's like you don't accept that kind of level below that anymore. And you're like, no, this is the standard that I'm working at. And that's just so important for yourself, and for the growth of yourself and others around you, I think. Because people do see it, and they go, oh, they've done quite a lot of stuff on themselves, maybe I should look at myself. And sometimes that really triggers out other people. And I've noticed it so much, and you know, I think it's always something to remind yourself, especially in these times where people are going to be very edgy anyway. If somebody has a thing at you, you know, it's like, that sucks, it's not my stuff, that sounds like a you problem, like
that's massive. That's like sorry to interrupt you, but that's like a massive lesson as well, isn't it, when you start to recognize what is yours and what is someone else's. And it's a really good question as well, and a good tool, isn't it, to have when, if you're starting to feel edgy when you're having like a conversation or whatever, you're like, why am I feeling like this? Is this mine? And when you start to know yourself, you get that instant yes or no, don't you? And then if it's a no, you're like, oh, it's theirs, I can relax. Do you know what I mean? So it is a really good tool I've found to have in my box as well.
Yeah, it's exciting, I think, when I come across a new piece of work now, because I'm like, oh, there's a trigger there. What's the work that I need to do? And I used to shy away from it before, and it is really difficult to turn around and look at yourself. But there's so much benefit that you can get out of it. And there's always going to be people that trigger, you know, you in more ways than others, and it's like, well, where is that kind of feeling coming from? Where's that bad experience that you've experienced in the past has created that pattern, or, you know, that program that's running? Where's that come from? I think that's really important.
It's like being a big onion, isn't it? It's like when you start peeling the initial layers, you just got to keep going, and there's always going to be more stuff that comes up for you. But the more tools that you have at your disposal, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also acknowledging that and taking time to do that. Kirsty did a video the other day about acknowledging, like, as a woman, your woman's time, and how the first 2 weeks are very masculine, and you're in a very masculine energy, and you're very like, right, I'm gonna go do a thing, I'm gonna get the goals, I'm gonna do it. And the second sort of like 2 weeks is where you just want to literally crawl up in bed and, you know, eat, take away food. And that's okay. And I've actually learned to do that now. Whereas when I would fight for it before, I would make myself feel worse, because it was almost like I wasn't validating those feelings. I was really like, well, why can't I do the thing? Why am I crying? Why am I, you know? And it's like, it's okay. Like, sometimes you don't need to put a label or a reason on why you're crying. Like, the world's a bit crap right now, just cry. Like, it's fine, like, cry. Especially as in a British culture, we're so emotionally like repressed in the way that we're just not able to express, like, all the way from children and childhood. So yeah, I think it's really important to sort of acknowledge those feelings. And sometimes I allow myself at least like 2 half days a week sometimes, you know, to sit and cry and eat crap food, like just to watch something, or you know, just take some time for myself, just sit on a sofa, like, which I don't do a lot anymore because I can't find comfort in it too much. But I think it's really important to honor that time and look at everything. For a long time I was like, oh my god, I'm depressed, and then I was like, oh no, I'm just on my period, it's fine. So yeah, you've got to take in all different factors, you know, hormonal, emotional, the people around you, energy as well. Like energy work is so,
it's massive.
yeah, like when you start to realize that you've got your own energy, and sometimes, you know, you go into a situation, you're like, and you come out and you feel so drained. It's because you've picked up somebody else's and you've not got that protection on yourself.
Yeah.
So that's so important, those kind of boundaries, and that's something I've been working on a lot recently, and I will continue to develop on. So
yeah. I was wondering to myself yesterday, you know, how we've obviously got the social distancing at the minute and you have to stay so far apart, and I thought, oh, it'd be really interesting to find out how people are feeling in terms of their energy, you know, because I always talk about, I'm a massive believer in grounding and protecting your energies, you know, before you go out, before you're working with someone, so you don't feel drained. And I thought, I wonder how many people are feeling less drained right now because they're not sat next to someone who's an energy vampire, and they're not around people who are complaining or negative, and they're having to maintain that distance. I thought it would be really interesting. I don't know how you would do it, but to find out, you know, whether people are feeling less drained because they've got space potentially.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was speaking to one of my friends about this the other day. I just like, I messaged her on WhatsApp and I was like, it's so weird how I just like, I naturally cross the road now when I see somebody else. There's a person, avoid them, like, and I think as well, for somebody who suffers from depression or anxiety, sometimes it takes me like, it can, you know, in the past, it's taken me up to 2 hours just to leave the bloody house.
Yeah.
And that's like, you know, get to the door, take 5 steps back, get to the door, takes 2 steps back. Like, it's like a constant. And I like procrastinate so much. I was like, I'll just hoover up and then I'll leave, or I'll just, you know, it's the anxiety of just leaving the house. So now that the whole world has slowed down, I found the whole thing to begin with really, really exciting. And then it got a little bit like, then you saw everybody's crazy come out and you just been like, especially on social media. So I think it's been really important, but I think that lack of connectedness is going to be really interesting to see how we move forward from here. And if, you know, I think people are going to be very, very cautious, have to be cautious of people's boundaries and stuff. Because I was thinking this and I was like, I can't wait till like the Five Rhythms family like gets back together, and, you know, and I'm like, there's a lot of physical contact that goes on in some of those like stuff. I wonder how it's going to be, because are people going to be like, whoa, I'm not ready, like this is my space, and that's fine, like, because you know, it's going to be weird to get that physical contact back again with people. And how people have kind of stayed on the Zoom thing, and a lot of people that are working at the moment being like, I really like this, it's great, like I don't have to leave the house, I can sit in my pajamas and work, like I do it when I want to do it. And even some of the people like yoga teachers and stuff that I spoke to said, I think I'm going to continue to work online, because I don't think I'm even going to go back to working in classes. So it's a completely different way. Are we going to kind of stay more? And I remember somebody said to me, we are the most connected yet disconnected society. You know, we're the most connected digitally. We can, you know, straight away, boom, you can see someone on the other side of the world on a screen, or you know, you can phone someone. We were so connected in so many different ways, all these different social media platforms, yet we're so disconnected that we sometimes even forget how to have a conversation with someone. And it shouldn't be a weird thing if somebody asks how your day is when you're shopping. You know, it shouldn't just be like, oh, they're asking me a question. Like, you know, it's a normal thing, because that's how we were supposed to be as tribal people. We're not supposed to kind of sit and rot in boxes. We're supposed to be out there, you know, doing things as a community.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Verite, for coming and speaking to us about your spiritual journey. I've really enjoyed hearing about your experiences, and I hope, like I said, if someone's watching this and, you know, they're in a bad place or they're in a dark place or whatever, that, you know, just seeing how you are now and listening to your experiences, I hope will help someone.
Yeah, I definitely would say reach out, and you know, there's just so many different methods that you can do. A number one thing I would say is don't trust I would say don't trust the NHS, but the NHS is not the one way to go. And if you've got to this point already, you probably know that. You've heard of the dark night of the soul, or you think, oh, these are all the symptoms, you know, I feel tired, I feel restless, I don't know where I am, I don't know who I am, all of these things. Like, there is you know, another side of that tunnel. And You've just got to like keep pushing through it and just keep trying different things, because not all one size fits all. You know, the reason why I went into chemotherapy is because it takes about 20 different forms of therapy, and that's the particular therapy that I had to get a specialist trained therapist to go through stuff with me, because I'd done it all, and I was like, well, it's not my emotional patterns. Like, why am I not feeling better now like everybody else? So you just got to try everything, and try, you know, I don't want to use the word alternative, holistic therapies as well. So yeah, just keep going.
Oh, fabulous. Well, I'll put the links to your Facebook page below, and if people want to get in touch with you, can they just find you on Facebook?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so my name on Facebook is Verite Hunter, and my page is called Healing Heartlines. And yeah, there's going to be loads of new kind of ideas coming up there as I'm going through kind of coaching programs at the moment, and running new programs for people. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, thank you very much, Verity.
Thank you so much.
Take care, darling. Bye-bye.